Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittnee. I'm so excited for today's Bonbon Design. I'm wondering if anyone can guess what it's inspired by. If you think you know, pause the video and comment down below what you think inspired me for this design. So, this week's video isn't Olympic themed like last week's video was, but it is Olympic inspired. This faded polka dot design is something I keep seeing as I'm watching the Olympics, and this turquoise faded polka dot design I've specifically seen on all the gymnastics apparatuses like the vault, balance beam, and pommel horse. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know that gymnastics is my favorite sport to watch in the Olympics. But seriously, who else thinks that this is the cutest gymnastics gym that they've ever seen? It is like so pleasing to the eye. Like the colors and the different patterns are so cute for some reason to me. In fact, I just love all of the Paris Olympic branding. They have all these cool geometric shapes that were inspired by landmarks in architecture. Anyway, I just love it. Also, have you seen the outdoor sand volleyball court right there by the Eiffel Tower? It's just so cool. Anyway, when I saw this cute polka dot pattern combined with a fade from dark blue to light blue, the first thing I thought of was how cute it would be on a chocolate bonbon. So that's what I'll be showing you in today's video. And one more thing really quick before we get into the video, I want to show you guys something that I've been working on and that I'm really excited about. You know that I always link all the supplies that I use in my video down in the description box below. But sometimes the list can get really long and sometimes I make mistakes or I'll forget a link or the link will be broken or something like that. Well, for a long time, I've been wanting to update my website and add a page with all my affiliate links, somewhere where I can direct you guys to find a comprehensive list of all of my favorite supplies and all the supplies that I'm using really regularly. So I finally put in the time. It took forever, and I have linked all of my favorite supplies. So if you ever wonder where I bought something that you see me use in a video, or you want to see what my top recommendations are, just go to the shop tab on my website, which is brittneek.com. So here, if you click shop, you will see both my own products that I'm selling along with all of my affiliates. And then you can click on my favorite supplies to find, well, all of my favorite supplies. But if you want to get more specific, you can choose categories and subcategories. So I have general, chocolate work, and cake decorating. So say that you're looking for a specific polycarbonate mold, you would click chocolate work and then click chocolate molds. There you can browse all my favorite molds and other supplies that I use along with molds. Also, my affiliates give me a small percentage when you buy through my links, but don't worry, you don't pay any extra. And speaking of supplies, here are the supplies for today's video that you'll need. A lighter and darker cocoa butter color. I'm using a light turquoise and a teal color because I was going for the exact same teal and turquoise colors used on the gymnastics apparatuses, but I think any monochromatic color scheme would look great here. To get this turquoise color, I mixed Chef Rubber Alabaster White with Chef Rubber Breakfast Blue. To get this teal color, I mixed Chef Rubber Breakfast Blue with Chef Rubber Teal. When mixing colors, always start with a lighter color. To get the turquoise, I started with a lot of white and slowly added in the breakfast blue until I reached the color I wanted. That's because it's easy to darken a color, but a lot harder to lighten it without having to add a ton of the lighter color. Here you'll see my swatches of where my mixes started, and then I just added the darker colors until I got where I wanted to be. For the dots, I tested out 3 different tools. They all work pretty good, but I went with the paintbrush because it gives me the size of dot that I needed for the design. I'll be using this half sphere polycarbonate mold for the chocolates today. And in order to do the fade on this design, you will need an airbrush. My mold is polished and my darker color cocoa butter is tempered, so I grab my mini round paintbrush. To start my pattern, I'm placing my first dot into the center of each half sphere. And one day I'll figure out how to film detail work without my head in the frame. So sometimes the molds can create static electricity and it can be difficult to paint into them without the surface of the mold pulling cocoa butter from the paintbrush. Sometimes it happens to me and sometimes it doesn't, but a couple things I'm thinking that help are using ethanol to polish rather than a dry cotton ball, and then also painting with pretty cool cocoa butter. The cooler the cocoa butter, the thicker it is, which I think makes it harder for the static to pull off the brush. So after I temper my cocoa butter, I warm it only to 28 degrees Celsius. And then as I paint all these dots, I only warm it up to keep it fluid. So basically it's slowly cooling down below 27 degrees Celsius, and that's okay. That technique for small detail work seems to always work for me. So the pattern for the dots is staggered rows, or you could also think of them as in diagonal rows or diamonds. So after getting all my center dots into the mold, I paint on all the surrounding dots to lay out the start of my pattern and get my spacing. So I do the first 3 dots of the center line, and then I do the next 2 rows in the spaces of the first 3 dots. And I do that on all of the cavities before I move on. The reason why is that it's easier to repeat each section on the whole mold before moving to the rest of the pattern because of the angle that I have to look down into the mold at and the angle I have to hold my brush to paint on each portion. I found that the best way to dip the brush into the cocoa butter to keep the dot sizes consistent and to not get too much paint is to just tap the tip of the brush into the surface of the cocoa butter a couple times. So the next section of dots that I paint, I extend the first 3 rows up to the edge of the cavity and then add 1 more row on each side from the middle on. I do this on every cavity going one direction and then flip the mold and do it in the other direction on the opposite side of the cavity. And then the last sections are to just fill in the open spaces on each side of the cavity edges, and then the dots are done. I'm so happy with how they turned out. They're pretty consistent in spacing and pattern along with the sizes of the dots. I didn't know how clean I would actually be able to get them, but I think they look really good. Now it's time to spray the fade. In the design, the dark color is sprayed first. That will give you a more natural looking fade than if you were to try to spray the lighter color first. Like I mentioned before, as I painted, I let my cocoa butter cool pretty low. So before spraying, I actually re-tempered the teal just to be sure it was tempered well. And even though I ran the cocoa butter through a sieve and even took out my airbrush needle and cleaned it before spraying, it seemed like I had a bit of a clog because there just wasn't as much paint coming out as there should have been. So I warmed it up a bit more and also pulled out the needle and wiped it again. And as you can see, that fixed it. Before spraying onto my dotted mold, I wanted to test how I would do the fade just to make sure I don't mess up because I definitely didn't want to repaint all those dots. I just wanted to make sure I knew the angle and where to aim to get the look I wanted for the fade. I wanted the darker color to fade into the lighter color at about halfway across the bonbon. Really, that means you only want it to be super dark on the very edge because as you spray, the overspray naturally fades across the cavity, sometimes more than you think it will. So to get the fade that I like, I hold my airbrush low to the mold, probably at about a 45-degree angle or a little less. And I aim my airbrush right at the top edge of the cavity and I just spray across line by line. After I do 2 passes on each row, I clean the surface of my mold and let it set up for a couple of minutes. Then I do a couple more layers, basically just until the teal color is as dark as I want it. And the settings that I used for this were 80 psi, max airflow, and low to medium paint flow, probably closer to low. I wanted to avoid spraying in too much cocoa butter because it's better to start slow and build up rather than accidentally spray in too much and you can't get rid of it. Now while the teal sets up, I temper my turquoise cocoa butter and then I just spray on the background. Same airbrush settings as before, but I think I upped the paint flow a little, probably closer to medium, in order to get a thicker coat and make sure any open space left was filled with the background color. And here's how the design looks from the outside of the mold. I love these colors so much and I'm so happy with how the fade turned out. And I shelled, filled, and capped the chocolates off camera and they're ready to pop out of the mold. And here's how they turned out. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below if you like them and what color you would make these in. I honestly think they'd look so cute in about any color. Alright guys, that is today's video. I hope that you love today's Bonbon design as much as I do. I really think this design is one of my favorite designs that I've ever made, thanks to the Paris Olympics gymnastics. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like and comment down below. It helps me out a lot. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, today's the day. If you'd like to see something else that's sweet, just click on one of these thumbnails. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.